Hi everyone, Steve Jones along with Todd Sadowski and also Phil Grosz. Great to have you with us on White Tailgate Show presented by Rich Coast Coffee. And we get rolling with the opener. It's great to win the opener, guys, especially when it turned out it was not a lesser school in the FBS or FCS. It was a good opponent.
Yeah, it was a darn good opponent. I was really thrilled with the defense. I think the number one factor, or the number one thing that impressed me defensively, was the play of Jordan Lucas and Trevor Williams at the cornerback spots.
Brad?
Well, what I think is what a difference a year makes, right? For Coach O'Brien, you consider and you can compare it to last year's opener against Ohio and then compare it to this year's opener versus Syracuse. What a difference a year makes. The offensive system in place has looked like they knew where they were supposed to be, what they were supposed to be doing. And boy, that second half, the start of it was really, really just electric.
No question. Now, time for Sounding Off with Bill O'Brien, presented by Family Clothesline. Bill on the opening win.
You know, we got a long way to go. It's just one. We're just trying to win the day. We won today. We're grateful for that. We're just going to try to do a good job reviewing it tomorrow as a staff and then get the guys back and start getting ready for Eastern Michigan on Monday.
It's a starting point for Christian Hackenberg. How did you feel about the starting point he delivered?
Anytime you get a freshman that just enrolled in school in June, Steve, you got to be pleased. 22 with 31, 71% completion, 278 yards. I think you couldn't have expected more from Christian Hackenberg.
And Todd, for you, you had an opportunity to take a closer look at those quarterbacks.
Yeah, broke it down a little bit. And certainly Tyler Ferguson would have loved to have played a little bit more, but I think Christian Hackenberg had a lot to do with that. And as Bill O'Brien says, you don't dip your toe in the water at Penn State. So he threw the 18-year-old teenager into the deep end, on and off the field.
You'd have to ask him. He'll come in. He'll talk to you guys.
To everyone's surprise, he did come in to chat. True freshmen are usually off limits to the media feeding frenzy. That says something about the trust this staff has in Hackenberg's decision-making on and off the field.
It's great to know that I have that confidence. It always helps to know that the staff is behind you and what you can do.
I think he's a confident kid. I think he believes in himself, believes in his teammates, and he's got great poise. He's got a real good demeanor. He's a smart football player. For a guy that's 18 years old, he's a well-coached guy coming in the door here, and he understands things, and he made some mistakes today, but, you know, there's a lot to build on.
While Hackenberg trots onto the field for the first snap, sophomore Tyler Ferguson observes from the sidelines. Promised the third series of the game, he delivers a strike for a first down before turning it over on his third and last play of the game. Obvious disappointment for the California kid.
I'm sure he was, but, you know, at that point in the game, I just felt like it was best to go with Christian.
Hackenberg had 11 completions in the first half, good for only 69 yards. The presence of Allen Robinson and growing confidence results in a more wide-open second-half attack.
Freshman coming in, you know, the first snap was always big for me, but, you know, once I got that out of the way and started getting a little bit more completions under my belt, you know, the team started moving the ball, you know, I definitely felt more comfortable.
Comfortable enough to hang in the pocket and deliver a perfect ball to redshirt freshman Eugene Lewis for 6. A play where Lewis is given the lion's share of the credit.
Defense, they changed coverages in the middle of the field, came wide open. I had a post route, and I got open, and, you know, Hack threw it up. Just my main focus was catching the ball, and I caught the ball and got a touchdown too.
All Hackenberg's got to do is throw it. Lewis got in there, kept it skinny, and the safety was in the middle. And on that football play, Christian probably did the least amount of work, and everybody else did a great job, and he made the throw, which is why he's on scholarship.
Sure, he tossed a couple of picks, but there are a bunch of positives from the youngster. A 70% completion percentage, almost 13 yards for every ball that was caught, and not one, but 2 TD passes over 50 yards. The best part is he should only get better from here.
He's got a tremendous future, but, you know, we're not ready to waltz him into the College Football Hall of Fame and certainly the NFL Hall of Fame. I mean, we're just saying that, look, you know, the guy's a talented guy. He's got a long way to go. It's one game. You know, we'll just keep learning from each other, and he's a fun guy to coach.
Definitely an impressive debut, and 2 things, guys, I wanted to talk about. One is he had the confidence in Christian Hackenberg to come and talk to the media afterwards as a true freshman to come in there. And 2, he also talked about how smart of a football player he is. And I think that speaks about, he didn't really go in gushing about his physical skills. He talked about how well coached he was, gave some credit to Fork Union for his high school teaching, and that he was really a smart football player.
You can see the progressions. You watch it in the tape right there, the progressions. You could see him look off one guy, go to the next one. But the other part, too, in the Lewis touchdown pass, the guy that made the play was Zach Zwinek. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, he ran Zwinek made the play. No blitz pickup, there's no pass.
That's probably the most important thing there in that play. Yeah, I know he had looked to Robinson on the pass play, but you're right. And that's probably the reason why you didn't see Belton and Akeel Lynch play a little bit more, because Zach did a great job with that.
Yeah, no question. All right, now we get to the home opener. Oh, back at Beaver Stadium. They have 7 games in Beaver Stadium. Ty Howell is anxious to get back home.
Oh yeah, I mean, all the guys are excited. This is the best place to play in college football for sure. And coming back, our fans traveled well with us last week, and we can only imagine how great it's going to be this week with 108,000 screaming fans here behind us. And I think that's something everybody's looking forward to and excited about this week.
And there's no doubt there's a comfort level playing at home. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and it's really strange to see that they started the season away from Beaver Stadium. First time that happened since 2000, but they're going to get used to it now. As you mentioned, 7 times they get to play in front of the home crowd, and these guys are really chomping at the bit to run out onto the field.
Let's take a look at what they've done in openers. Also, Penn State, their last 10, they're 9-1, 38 points a game. They only allowed 11 a game. They've rolled, and that's what they've been able to do. And like it says, no place like home. But, Phil, they also take on a team in Eastern Michigan. Oh, they won their home opener, but they beat Howard, and it wasn't exactly a work of art.
I think it's the perfect opponent. Offensively, they didn't have all the pieces together there for the first game. Robinson was out the first half, and Eastern Michigan's football team had the worst rushing defense in Division I college football last year, gave up 267 yards per game. This is going to be an opportunity for them to really work on things they want to do offensively to get ready for the game against Central Florida.
Our crack staff went deep to find the series between the two. And you can see their extensive research came up with 2 games. Andrew Callisto was up until 4 in the morning trying to find that. All right, Bill O'Brien, let's face it, you finally have a game in the books, so now you have something to work off of, the improvement from game 1 to game 2.
So I do think that we learned a lot about our team. We can go to the film room and say, hey, guys, look, this is what we as a coaching staff need to do better. This is what you need to do better. And if we make these improvements, we got a chance to improve next week, and that's all you're trying to do. So hopefully, I think that's why you see that 1 to 2 improvement. Hopefully you'll see that this week.
And that's what they'll work on throughout the course of this, trying to get that game 1 to game 2 improvement. All right, coming up next, a closer look at the offense. We may mention the Hackenberg kid a couple more times in the segment as we continue, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Welcome back. Great to have you with us on the Blue White Tailgate. We start out with a look at Christian Hackenberg. And we'll start out with the good part. And Phil, the good part to you was?
The good part is he was prepared and he was ready to go. And even though the fact he didn't have Allen Robinson there to work with, especially when Lehman and Carter were essentially out of the equation, I loved his poise and his command in the pocket.
Well, big-time performance. The game and the scenery, it wasn't too big for him as a true freshman. And one of his throws that someone would look at and say, well, he underthrew Allen Robinson on the touchdown pass. That's actually one of the throws that I like the most because he didn't overthrow him. How many freshmen would get excited and just let the thing fly? Because the kid can obviously throw the ball. But he made sure he saw him, recognized he was open, knew he could underthrow him a little bit because Allen Robinson had a little bit of time to adjust and catch it and still get down the field. So I was impressed overall with the way he handled everything.
And then the next part of it is obviously there's areas to improve. I don't think when they faced Winchester High School they ran a lot of zone blitzes. Okay? And that's one of the zone blitz got him the one time.
Right, and he didn't recognize that. The other thing is this team was 1 for 16 with third down conversions, exactly. 0 for 8 in the second half. So they're going to have to do a better job to keep these drives going. Yes, they struck for a couple of 50-yard plus touchdowns, but they have got to keep the drives moving, and that's one thing. Plus, there was 4 turnovers in the game, so offensively, they're fortunate that it didn't lead to more points for Syracuse.
Yeah, they had 214 yards on first down in the game, which ended up being 72% of their offensive production for the day. So first down was very important. But Christian Hackenberg says, I really don't need to have those 3 guys evaluate me. I can self-evaluate.
You know, I think that as a team we did well executing. You know, there's a lot of things we got to improve on, and we're going to continue to do that.
And what would you like to improve on?
You know, just recognizing defenses and continue from there.
When you got a playmaker like Robinson in the game in the second half, you started looking for him right away?
Definitely. You know, he's a great player. Made a lot of big plays for us today, as well as Gino. You know, the whole receiving corps really stepped up today at tight ends as well.
And you can see what Christian Hackenberg and Matt McGloin did in their respective opening games in the system. Matt being a fifth-year player, Christian being a true freshman. But and the numbers look like this at the Ohio University game last year versus the game with Syracuse. One was a loss, one was a win. First games as starters. But Allen Robinson opened up light for the second half, no question.
Yeah, and you got to look into the fact that McGloin was here for 5-6 months and had an opportunity to work with what he wanted to do with the offensive. You know, Christian Hackenberg comes in June, and I'm still amazed with the demeanor and the poise and the way he performed in that football game, and the fact he didn't have a guy like Allen Robinson to work with in the first half of that football game.
Did well, no question about it, but as Bill said, not ready to give him a bust in Canton. Let's go now to the Stocker Chevrolet drive of the game, brought to you by Stocker Chevrolet on the Benner Pike in State College. The drive of the game is a really extensive one. Penn State takes over, and Christian Hackenberg, there is Allen Robinson. Robinson takes it out to midfield, to his own 49-yard line. That works so well by going to the little hitch play that they decide to pump fake and go up top. This is the throw that Todd was talking about. This one here, and he takes it to the inside. His ability to take that to the inside, we've seen that repeatedly now the last 2 years, where he has that innate ability to say, there's the opening, and finds it.
Oh, I think those two plays really show what they're going to do with Allen Robinson. They moved him around the slot on the little screen play, and then they moved him to the outside and do the pump fake and everything to the guy underneath. And it just really shows how Allen Robinson can really impact, because the safeties were coming up trying to stop the short passes, and it was just a great job and a great call by Bill O'Brien.
No question about
Well,
that.
Christian Hackenberg got a taste of what life is like with and without Allen Robinson. And when Robinson's on the field, life is pretty good for the quarterback.
No question. Gary Gilliam started to tackle. He ended up making a big tackle in the game as well, because Syracuse ended up with no points. John Stroh had a closer look at Gary Gilliam's opening day attack.
The difference between winning and losing often comes down to effort and who's willing to lay it all on the line. And Saturday's game against Syracuse was filled with many of those plays, but there's only one that stands out above the rest. With Penn State up 13-10 and driving, Allen Robinson hauled in a pass from Christian Hackenberg and was running through the secondary when he was stripped from behind. Syracuse cornerback Brandon Reddish scooped up the fumble and appeared to be headed for a huge momentum-changing touchdown. That's when senior offensive tackle Gary Gilliam laid it all on the line for the Nittany Lions, making a great open field tackle that prevented a touchdown and led to a missed field goal by Syracuse. And Bill O'Brien wasn't shocked at all by Gilliam's effort on the play.
I expected nothing less of him than to go chase that down, and you know that does show his athletic ability, but also his heart and toughness.
Rarely do you see an offensive lineman make a play like that in the open field. And for Gilliam, he didn't think about the reasons why he couldn't make the play.
I mean, I can't think, oh, he's faster than me, or he has this angle on him. You just got to make the play. Whether you're thinking about it or not, you just got to go do it.
The fact that Gilliam made the tackle may not be as surprising when you consider he was a starting tight end last season and voluntarily moved to tackle. And to O'Brien, the whole play speaks volumes about who Gary Gilliam is as a player and a person.
Just for a big guy, what a fantastic athlete, tough guy. People in that locker room hold Gary in very high regard.
And for Gilliam, that tackle in his Penn State career can be summed up in a few words.
Just got to be selfless when it comes to anything. Just do what's best for the team. Really, that's just what it is.
And that sums up Gary Gilliam and the play that he made against Syracuse on Saturday. For the Blue White Tailgate Show, I'm John Stroh.
By the way, Gary Gilliam came here his true freshman year. He actually was a defensive end, and that's where the defensive end skills come into play. Let's talk about the ground game. Bill O'Brien, some people said, gee, what happened to the ground game? Well, you see with the yards, 57 on 38 carries. Sacks, by the way, are included in there. There were 2 sacks. And what did Bill O'Brien think about the ground game?
You know, first of all, the running game plan starts with me. I thought the guys really blocked hard up front. I don't know why people think that, the offensive line struggled. The offensive line, when the play was called properly and the right play was put into the game, the offensive line blocked very, very well. We have a very good offensive line. The problem was the coaching. It's me. It starts with me. We got to do a better job with the running game, and we're going to work hard on it this week, and hopefully you'll see some improvement next week.
And the door is open because, as Phil pointed out in the opening segment, what Eastern Michigan does. That brings us to our offensive player of the week, and that is Sam Ficken. He is now tied a Penn State record with 13 consecutive field goals. He's our offensive player of the week after going 3 for 3 against Syracuse and 4 kickoffs, by the way, that ended up being touchbacks. First one here knocked it straight down the chute, gave a 3-3 game, put Penn State in front here with that field goal that looked like a 3-wood. And then this career-long 46-yard field goal for Sam Ficken. 13 consecutive field goals, tying Craig Fayak's school record. That's what he's been able to do. Ficken's been terrific.
Yeah, 13 and 13, you said, is a school record, and I was impressed with the 46-yard field goal, but probably what impressed me more is his improved leg strength. Yeah. The fact he was able to get, 5 of his 6 kickoffs into the end zone unreturnable. So that's a great situation, and that's going to be a big bonus for Penn State down the line.
Coming up, a look at a defense that was outstanding. It only gave up really 3 big plays in the game as we continue, presented by Rich Coast Coffee.
Baby, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Interception, first game at linebacker, hit of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good, you know. We just went out there and did our thing. Everybody did their assignment. We did what we had to do.
And he certainly did. Stephen Obeng-Archibong ended up being our defensive player of the week. I don't know, 8 tackles, an interception, a sack, a fumble recovery. I mean, the fumble recovery, he forced the fumble himself, as you can see here. Here comes the interception right here. That's the first of his career. And he's not done yet. The kid from the Bronx. There's Allen. There goes Allen. Bye-bye. Good night. Stephen Obeng-Archibong, our defensive player of the week. And they moved him closer, Todd, to the line of scrimmage, and the dividends paid off because he has to get used to the hand fighting there, but he knows how to play the pass already.
Yeah, and Coach O'Brien said he's a thick guy. He's 5'10", 205, so he can handle that contact. I think he's about 195 pounds, though, after that game because he just sweat through his first jersey, had to go in halftime, get another jersey that didn't even have his name on the back, which isn't easy to put on the back of his jersey as it is. But the guy can handle this. He's pretty good size as a safety, a little undersized as a linebacker, but Coach O'Brien thinks he can handle He thinks he can handle, the linebacker position a good bit. And, his stat line looked like LeBron James playing basketball, a little bit of everything in 4 different categories. And it was really just a coming out party for him and the way to introduce himself.
Filled it up, Todd. He filled it up, just like that name in the back fills it up.
Yep.
He also had our hit of the week. And one more time at the look at the hit of the week. It is the sack off the edge. Here he comes. Good night. One of 2 sacks the Nittany Lions had in the game, and you can just see it right there. And, that's why on my spot chart he takes up the whole line, Phil. I could barely get into height and weight after that, but he played really well.
I think he's the most underappreciated member of the Penn State defense. Few people remember he played hurt almost all of last football season. Yep. He's a physical player, and he brings a lot of versatility, especially when Penn State goes to the 4-2-5 with only 2 linebackers on the field.
And just another guy that Bill O'Brien has great appreciation of because he just does what the team needs.
He's a guy just like a lot of these guys, all these guys. It's just a real team guy. He's kind of a in-between guy. He plays on all the special teams. He's from right here in New York City, so it's a great homecoming for him. We've asked him to play safety. We've asked him to play linebacker. We've asked him to play nickel. We've asked him to learn how to blitz, how to play the run in the box, how to play coverage. So, what more can we ask of that guy? He's a fantastic kid.
And not only that, but then there's Glenn Carson. Glenn Carson has developed himself, Phil, into a good every down linebacker.
He really took charge in that football game. What impressed me the most about Glenn is his improved play against the pass. The 4th down breakup on that situation I thought was impressive. And he was a leader on the team defensively, and he played sideline to sideline.
And then there's Mike Hull, gets hurt in the game, one of the better football players on this team. The good news is he's day-to-day.
Yeah, and they need him. I mean, obviously that was one of the positions that we talked about with depth. Linebacker, we need guys. And Mike Hull, you can see how much he wants to be on the field. He's off the field, he's in the locker room, he's back on the sidelines, back in the game. These guys want to get out there and play. His backup, Ben Klein's the same way. He's dealing with injuries, but he's out there on the field as well. And, you know, Phil mentioned Glenn Carson and just what a leader he is. Before the 4th down stop, he stuffed the guy on 3rd down and straightened him out so he couldn't stretch over the line. So it's really, really inspiring the way that these guys are landing on the line right away in game 1. And the other thing, guys, is the conditioning. It was hot, and it was humid, and these guys still look fairly fresh into the 4th quarter.
And Daquan Jones could have been a great choice as well in this game. 9 tackles, 3 for losses, and a sack.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about the importance of that defensive line and just holding their ground, and they did. Daquan Jones got in there, got the other sack for the game. It's going to be nice to see if they can get some more pressure on the quarterback this week against Eastern Michigan. But as far as handling the ground game, they did a really nice job, and another solid day for Daquan Jones.
Phil, with corner play like Jordan Lucas and Trevor Williams, if that stays consistent, what can that now do for John Butler's scheming?
Oh, you can do a lot of different things with your safeties. You can walk them up to the line of scrimmage. You can put a safety over the top. You have 2 big cornerbacks. That's what I love about Lucas. They're both physical. They're both big. They can play man-to-man. They use the sidelines as an extra defender. If they can perform like that the rest of the season, you really can mix things up defensively with your secondary coverages.
And Glenn Carson was very pleased, by the way, with how well those young safeties performed in the game.
Jordan Lucas, Trevor Williams, they did a really great job for us. They made some really big plays, and they're just football players. And when it comes down to it, I really enjoy playing for them. They're going to have a bright future here.
Bright future indeed. And Todd, it makes all the difference in the world when you can have that kind of safety, corner play, because, they shut it down.
Yeah, he mentioned bright future. These are just sophomores, both these guys. And, you know, what impressed Coach O'Brien and a lot of people watching was the last interception by Trevor Williams. This is a converted guy from the offense to the defense, and he showed it on the last play, made the adjustment, saw the ball, spotted it, kept his feet in bounds, and really turned the game. That was it after that. If he doesn't catch the ball, then maybe they're still going. They still got a chance to go. But to actually complete, execute the interception and get it back was really, really impressive.
Yeah, and that you could see the wide receiver in him on that play because you know, he caught it, and you could see he was consciously trying to get his feet in bounds. That's the wide out there.
That's been a major benefit, especially for Trevor Williams. And I also like Lucas's physical play. He came up and blew up a screen pass. He really did a great job.
So, again, great job by the corners, no doubt about that. Coming up, Phil and Todd will come back. They'll take a look at Penn State recruiting. And not only look at recruiting, but how some of the run-ons have done and who actually played in that opening game as we continue, presented by Rich Coast Coffee.
Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. I'm Todd Sadowski, along with Phil Grosz. This is the recruiting segment sponsored by Central Pennsylvania Dock and Door. And this class of 2013, Phil, everybody talks about the senior class being so special last year. This freshman class is really a special group of guys for Penn State, isn't it?
They're committed, and they know they got to come prepared to play. 16 redshirt freshmen and true freshmen traveled to MetLife Stadium for the game against Syracuse, and 14 of them ended up playing. So it kind of illustrates that you better come prepared to play with the sanctions in place.
That's right. Coach O'Brien mentioned some of it was a reward for some of the guys. So let's go through some of the names. Got to start at the top. Christian Hackenberg. How'd you think he did?
He did marvelously. 22 for 31, 278, 71% completion percentage. But his poise and command of the offense, even though it was a little bit limited with what they did on the football field, that's what impressed me the most.
Made his commitment, kept it, and he's there under center. It's good to see for the Nittany Lions. Eugene Lewis caught one of the touchdown passes.
I think Eugene Lewis, as the season progresses, very, very important. He gives them another deep threat, and when they go to the 3 wide receiver set and the 54-yard touchdown, take the pressure and the double team make it hard to do that on Allen Robinson.
Von Walker, what are your thoughts on him?
It kind of illustrates the importance of the run-on program. He got involved in special teams, had a nice tackle on a punt return situation, and he's back there with Jesse Della Valle returning punts. So the program, you know, the run-ons, they got to come also prepared to play.
Last name I want to talk about is Adam Brenneman. Here's a guy we're going to see a little bit more of, and he was right there with Hackenberg, an early commitment that kept it. He got some action in.
He kept it, and then when, you know, you had the injuries to Matt Lehman and to Kyle Carter, he had to perform not just on the line of scrimmage and the tight end, but also on special teams. Had a tackle, played well.
Yeah, definitely going to see a lot more of number 81 after Matt Lehman is out for the season. And that leads us to our package from Andrew Callista. His story is about how Penn State, after the Syracuse game, is going to have to tap into some of that depth.
Going into the Syracuse game on Saturday, Penn State was a relatively healthy football team. But by the end of the second quarter, some could argue that the wheels were coming off the wagon. Tight end Matt Lehman and Mike Hall suffered game-ending injuries. In Lehman's case, his injury is season-ending. And so-called experts have been predicting injuries like this for over a year now to derail Penn State's football team. In his post-game press conference, Coach Bill O'Brien refused to use depth issues as an excuse.
You know, depth's an issue for everybody. You know, I really do. Everybody in the country has, if a good player gets hurt, that's not good for anybody in the country. So I think it's not an excuse for us. It's just, hey, next guy up, and that'll always be the case here, whether we have 85, 65, 15, 25, 5, 1.
Losing Hall for any amount of time is a big blow to the defense. And senior linebacker Glenn Carson knows that better than anyone. But he knows his mates are ready to roll when called upon.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's all about, you need depth on a football team because you don't know who's going to go down. It's a long season, it's a 12-game season, and you just always need those next guys to be prepared and ready to step up.
Last week it was Stephen Obank stepping up on the defensive side of the ball. And while O'Brien said Matt Lehman is a big loss, you just have to make adjustments with your personnel.
What personnel group are we going to use now that we don't have Matt Lehman? Of course, that it's not, you know, when you lose a good player, it's not good for anybody. But it is about the next man up, and that next man might be a receiver, it might be another running back, it might be another, you know, a guy that you move over from defense to do some things for you. You know, you have to think out of the box. So I don't think it's as much about limiting, it's more about being able to think out of the box and put guys in the right spots.
It's clear the team has bought into the mantra O'Brien preaches of next man up. But at some point you have to wonder, when will the injuries become too much to handle? For the Blue White Tailgate Show, I'm Andrew Callista.
Thanks, Andrew. And I love how Coach O'Brien doesn't let this stuff as an excuse, the reduction in the scholarships, all that stuff with the injury update. We want to go to the Health South injury update. Unfortunately, some of these names are starting to pile up a little bit. We talked about Brad Bars last week. He's out for the season. Matt Lehman, the knee injury, he's done. Mike Hull, day-to-day. And Kyle Carter. Phil, you were talking about, we're kind of lucky he's only day-to-day, aren't we?
Yeah, he really got on the fake field goal attempt. He really got the left arm really banged up.
And Mike Hall, what a tough guy. He kept coming back into the game. We hopefully are going to see him back out there coming up this week.
I hope they actually keep him out. I think that it would be a great game because he's going to have to be able to play against UCF.
That's a good point. Let's give Ben Klein some time to get in there and play as well, Naeem Wortman. And we'll see a little bit more of Stephen Obing Ajapong over there at linebacker, probably so.
No question about that, and the secondary got to get ready for UCF.
Yep, absolutely, and then we certainly have the staff that keep an eye on these guys to keep them healthy. Okay, when we come back on the Blue White Tailgate, we're going to talk about that juggernaut of an opponent, Eastern Michigan. Just kidding. We are going to break down the Eagles, though. They shouldn't be scared of this team. We're going to find out what they need to do to get past Eastern Michigan coming up on the Blue White Tailgate.
We are Penn State! We are Penn State! Thank you! You're welcome!
Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coast Coffee. I'm Todd Sadowski along with Phil Grosz. This is the recruiting segment sponsored by Central Pennsylvania Dock and Door. And this class of 2013, Phil, everybody talks about the senior class being so special last year. This freshman class is really a special group of guys for Penn State, isn't it?
They're committed, and they know they got to come prepared to play. 16 redshirt freshmen and true freshmen traveled to MetLife Stadium for the game against Syracuse, and 14 of them ended up playing. So it kind of illustrates that you better come prepared to play with the sanctions in place.
That's right. Coach O'Brien mentioned some of it was a reward for some of the guys. So let's go through some of the names. Got to start at the top. Christian Hackenberg. How'd you think he did?
He did marvelously. 22 for 31, 278, 71% completion percentage. But his poise and command of the offense, even though it was a little bit limited with what they did on the football field, that's what impressed me the most.
Made his commitment, kept it, and he's there under center. It's good to see for the Nittany Lions. Eugene Lewis caught one of the touchdown passes.
I think Eugene Lewis, as the season progresses, very, very important. He gives them another deep threat, and when they go to the 3 wide receiver set and the 54-yard touchdown, take the pressure and the double team, make it hard to do that on Allen Robinson.
Von Walker, what are your thoughts on him?
It kind of illustrates the importance of the run-on program. He got involved in special teams, had a nice tackle on a punt return situation, and he's back there with Jesse Della Valle returning punts. So the program, the run-ons, they got to come also prepared to play.
Last name I want to talk about is Adam Brenneman. Here's a guy we're going to see a little bit more of, and he was right there with Hackenberg, an early commitment that kept it. He got some action in.
He kept it, and then when you had the injuries to Matt Lehman and to Kyle Carter, he had to perform not just on the line of scrimmage and the tight end, but also on special teams. Had a tackle, played well.
Yeah, definitely going to see a lot more of number 81 after Matt Lehman is out for the season. And that leads us to our package from Andrew Callista. His story is about how Penn State, after the Syracuse game, is going to have to tap into some of that depth.
Going into the Syracuse game on Saturday, Penn State was a relatively healthy football team. But by the end of the second quarter, some could argue that the wheels were coming off the wagon. Tight end Matt Lehman and Mike Hall suffered game-ending injuries. In Lehman's case, his injury is season-ending. And so-called experts have been predicting injuries like this for over a year now to derail Penn State's football team. In his post-game press conference, Coach Bill O'Brien refused to use depth issues as an excuse.
Depth's an issue for everybody. I really do. Everybody in the country has, if a good player gets hurt, that's not good for anybody in the country. So I think it's not an excuse for us. It's just, hey, next guy up, and that'll always be the case here, whether we have 85, 65, 15, 25, 5, 1.
Losing Hall for any amount of time is a big blow to the defense. And senior linebacker Glenn Carson knows that better than anyone. But he knows his mates are ready to roll when called upon.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's all about, you need depth on a football team because you don't know who's going to go down. It's a long season, it's a 12-game season, and you just always need those next guys to be prepared and ready to step up.
Last week it was Stephen Obank stepping up on the defensive side of the ball. And while O'Brien said Matt Lehman is a big loss, you just have to make adjustments with your personnel.
What personnel group are we going to use now that we don't have Matt Lehman? Of course, that it's not, when you lose a good player, it's not good for anybody, but it is about the next man up, and that next man might be a receiver, it might be another running back, it might be another, a guy that you move over from defense to do some things for you. You have to think out of the box. So I don't think it's as much about limiting, it's more about being able to think out of the box and put guys in the right spots.
It's clear the team has bought into the mantra O'Brien preaches of next man up, but at some point you have to wonder, when will the injuries become too much to handle? For the Blue White Tailgate Show, I'm Andrew Callista.
Thanks, Andrew. And I love how Coach O'Brien doesn't let this stuff as an excuse, the reduction in the scholarships, all that stuff with the injury update. We want to go to the Health South injury update. Unfortunately, some of these names are starting to pile up a little bit. We talked about Brad Bars last week. He's out for the season. Matt Lehman, the knee injury, he's done. Mike Hull, day-to-day. And Kyle Carter. Phil, you were talking about we're kind of lucky he's only day-to-day, aren't we?
Yeah, he really got on the fake field goal attempt. He really got the left arm really banged up.
And Mike Hall, what a tough guy. He kept coming back into the game. We hopefully we're going to see him back out there coming up this week.
I hope they actually keep him out. I think that it would be a great game because he's going to have to be able to play against UCF.
That's a good point. Let's give Ben Klein some time to get in there and play as well, Naeem Wortman. And we'll see a little bit more of Stephen Obing Ajapong over there at linebacker, probably so.
No question about that, and the secondary got to get ready for UCF.
Yep, absolutely, and then we certainly have the staff that keep an eye on these guys to keep them healthy. Okay, when we come back on the Blue White Tailgate, we're going to talk about that juggernaut of an opponent, Eastern Michigan. Just kidding. We are going to break down the Eagles, though. They shouldn't be scared of this team. We're going to find out what they need to do to get past Eastern Michigan coming up on the Blue White Tailgate.
We are Penn State! We are Penn State! Thank you! You're welcome!
Eastern Michigan comes into this game with a 1-0 record. They beat Howard in the opener 34-24. They're not putting up a plaque on campus that they did it, okay? But they still won the game. Ron English, the former coordinator at Michigan, is now, it's going to be interesting because this will be one of the few games in the country you're going to see where the guy calling the plays on one side is the head coach and the defensive coordinator on the other side is the head coach. Ron English calls all the defenses. You can see what he's done. He actually was the MAC Coach of the Year 2 years ago. After talking about everything they do on defense, we'll get to that in a moment. Offensively, we start with Tyler Benz.
Yeah, he had a good game, 19 for 26 against Howard last week. Brought some balance to the offensive attack late in the football game. They came back from Howard leading that football game, but I think their key is they got to have Brandon Hill run the football to have any success against Penn State.
Let's get to Brandon Hill, Todd, because here's a guy that, you know, he ran for 103 yards last week. He's had 8 starts in his career. He's had over 104 different times. It's a big offensive line.
Yeah, he's capable of getting through the holes and getting through the linebackers and getting those extra yards. What concerns me is 11-38, and he was MAC Coach of the Year a couple of years ago. So what was going on in the other years for this team?
Charlie Batch's alma mater. Come on. All right. You know, you want to know what I know about Eastern Michigan?
Let's hear
I know they beat Penn State in the second round of the NCAA tournament up at the Carrier Dome. Okay, it's still crushing. It was a double overtime. Marcus Kennedy, the Thomas twins. I still have pain.
So now they get their revenge this Saturday, hopefully.
Well, I'm going to tell Bill, go for it.
That's right. And what we're looking for is for that defense to get into the backfield. I mentioned it before. You know, they had 2 sacks against Syracuse. I think this is a game we can get Deion Barnes. We can get some guys into the backfield and get some tackles for losses.
Jay Jones is a guy that's one of the leaders at wide receiver, pretty good, had 4 catches in the opener, a guy that Benz depends on, along with Tyrese Russell, the tight end, who's very good as well. The offensive line, though, is huge, Phil, but
they certainly don't have the feet of Gary Gilliam.
There we go.
You know, they're what, average about 310 per million along the offensive line.
Diplomacy has gotten so much better. I like that. Your diplomacy's good.
Well, facts are facts. You know, they're big, they're strong, and they're slow. Yeah, that's all you got to say about them. And I would be disappointed if DeQuan Jones and the guys didn't get some real pressure, especially Deion Barnes.
DeQuan Jones coming off a big day himself with the 9 tackles, 3 for losses, and the sack goes into this with respect for an offensive line that certainly brings bulk to the table.
They're all about 6'4" and 315 plus, and but for their size, they really can move. So it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be just a challenge. It'll be a physical game in the trenches, and but I think our group's gonna be ready for that.
Kalanji Kashima and also Cy Mothmer up front will give Penn State some trouble. They're both good football players, and Sean Kurtz at middle linebacker very good as well. But here's the first time that Penn State's going to experience where the targeting rule is going to actually affect the football game. Donald Coleman, the transfer from NC State, on a sack was called for hitting a defensive player, and because of that, he has to sit out the first half of this game.
Well, they're taking it seriously. I mean, that just goes to show you the referees they're keeping a watch on what's going on. These guys, you know, football's such an instinctive game, guys, and these guys are taught and they take it onto the field, and you practice it, and then it should become instincts, right, defensively. Yeah. And so now you got to think about what you're doing while you're out there, because the refs are watching it very, very closely. In this particular game, he's going to have to sit and watch the first half.
And run defense we'll get to in a moment, which Phil will talk about. But Ty Howell's one of those guys who have to key not only the pass protection but the run offense.
They're a good team, you know. We watched them, and you know, those guys play hard and they're aggressive, and they're a tough team. So I mean, you know, they're going to be a test for us. You know, we got to really prepare and be ready to play this week. So, you know, but we're excited for the challenge.
Interesting with Kashima and Mothmer, 2 very good players. Kurt's good middle linebacker, but they have struggled against the run.
Last year, as I said earlier, They were the worst Division I team against the run, giving up 267 yards per game. But what really had to be disturbing to Coach English in the performance against Howard is they got 202 yards, but they averaged almost 6 yards per carry. Penn State can do that. Look for 500 yards of offense.
And for an offense, I mean, obviously, when you get into this thing, you got to take it one at a time. You can't go out there and just say, Todd, we got them. They're not really that great. They are going to have to go out and they're just going to have to establish their dominance early. You can't open the door to these guys at all.
Right, and you mentioned first downs were successful for Penn State against Syracuse. You got to keep that going. They've got to average that 4, 5, 6 yards and then keep the drives moving. You got to look for the third down efficiency, 1 of 16 in game 1. Let's get that better. Let's get those drives going.
Penn State last week averaged 7.4 yards per play on first down. What you want, I think, idealistically on third down is at least be in that 30 to 40% range when it ends up being 3rd and 5 or better, and probably about 60 to 70% when it's 1 to 4 on third down. So, I mean, that's what they're looking for idealistically. Coming up, take a closer look as we roll on. We will talk with Matt Shepard, the play-by-play voice of Eastern Michigan, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. We're joined now by the outstanding play-by-play voice of Eastern Michigan, Matt Shepard. Matt, my friend, great to have you back with us.
Steve, always a pleasure. My honor. How are you?
All right, I'm doing well. And let's get to this football team. They win the opener over Howard. Give us an idea of the balance Ron English wants to have between what Tyler Benz can do and what Bronson Hill can do at tailback.
Well, Bronson Hill's a really good player. I mean, I was just talking to my analyst the other night, and he played 8 years in the NFL, and he firmly believes Bronson Hill is an NFL back. And he's doing it behind, kind of a makeshift offensive line. And it's not just Bronson Hill. I mean, see what he can do out of the backfield, running the football and catching the football. It's one thing, but, Eastern Michigan's got a kid by the name of Darius Jackson, who, Steve, would have been drafted in Major League Baseball, but told every scout and every college that was hot on his trails there out of the state of Illinois that he just loved football. He's got the body of a safety/linebacker, and he can tilt the rock too. I think Tyler Benz has to make good decisions, especially against Penn State, which we all have to be realistic on Eastern's opportunities here and be realistic about what they can do. But Tyler Benz is a guy who I think got valuable experience last year. He needs to do a better job of reading defenses, but he was pretty accurate last week and threw a couple of really nice touchdown passes, and he's growing with great confidence on a daily basis. That running game for a younger quarterback, and I'm not talking about whether he's a junior or a senior, I'm talking about number of starts under his belt, and Tyler Benz only has 10. That running game can give you as much confidence as completing a pass.
Let's flip it to the other side. Ron English this is an interesting matchup because you have Bill O'Brien, the head coach for Penn State, and he really is the offensive coordinator. And Ron English is the head coach for Eastern Michigan, and he's the defensive coordinator. When you look at the Moffmer and Kurtz and those guys, where have they come up short against the run? Because last year they were dead last in the country against the run.
Funny, with Eastern Michigan, it seems like alternating years they have strengths on one side of the ball. This year, their weaknesses on the offensive line. Last year, their strength was on the offensive line. Last year, their weakness might have been the guys up front, and this year they view it as a strength up front when you have Kalonji Kashama, who didn't have a very good game against Howard, but can get to the pass rusher. Cy Moffmer is a big guy inside. Pat O'Connor had a really good year last year, really good week last week, but that was his first career start. I think their linebackers, I think you would even admit this, are a little light in the pants.
Sure.
They're not big, strong. They're not your typical Michael Mauti type linebacker, who I absolutely love and made Minnesota. Congratulations to him. But Sean Kurtz gets after it. Great eBay is a transfer from Concordia. He just finds a way to make tackles. Will these guys be able to shed the massive offensive line that Penn State throws at them? Eastern Michigan's defensive core, maybe their strength might be the secondary. Darius Scott at one side. Willie Creer had a pretty good game on the other side. Donald Coleman will miss the first half of the game because of a hit to the head of a defensive player last week against Howard. Michael Swaim is a big guy and a very good athlete, as a big, tall former basketball player. That might be their strength, is the secondary of this club.
In the final minute here, I know this is going to be a Cliff Notes answer, but people may not realize that you also call Michigan basketball, and that team, of course, made it to the national championship game, right? In 30 seconds or less, can you capsulize what it meant to be a part of that run?
The highlight of my broadcasting career, and it's not just because of the event itself, but because of the people it's for. When you call games like you and I do with teams, you get close to them. You know what kind of good people they are. They deserved it. They worked hard. They did it the right way, and I think it's just the tip of the iceberg, man. I think they're going to keep it rolling.
Matt, obviously a great experience doing that. Thanks so much for the time you gave us. Can't wait to see you on Saturday.
Steve, looking forward to it almost as much as I'm looking forward to visiting the Creamery, as always, at Penn State. Thanks, buddy.
Matt Shepard, the outstanding play-by-play voice of Eastern Michigan football. We'll come back and wrap it up in a moment on Blue White Tailgate, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Great to have you with us. Phil Grosz, Todd Sadowski, Steve Jones. Special weekend coming up here at Penn State. 40 years ago, a group of individuals came together and they put together a perfect season. The 1973 team is back, and the man that broadcast every game that season, upon further review, Fran Fisher.
So it's Eastern Michigan at Beaver Stadium this week in the Nittany Lions home opener. I'm really looking forward to it for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the opportunity to spend some time with guys like John Cappelletti, Mark Markovich, Tom Donchez, Tom Schumann, Jim Rosecrans, and 50 or more of their 1973 playmates who have come back to campus for a reunion. 40 years ago, they went an unrecognized 12-0, and Cappy was to become Penn State's first and only Heisman Trophy winner, who brought a tear or two to Nittany Nation eyes in his touching trophy dedication to Brother Joey.
And he puts up with much more than I'll ever put up. And I think that this trophy is more of his than it is mine, because he's been a great inspiration to me.
Cappelletti's astounding 41-carry, 231-yard effort against Lou Holtz coached Bucky Twin-led North Carolina State all but locked up his unanimous All-American selection and put him at the top of the Heisman candidate list. Linebacker Eddie O'Neill and defensive tackle Randy Crowder were also named All-Americans, with Crowder winning the Washington Touchdown Club Player of the Year award. I'll tell you this, when the team chemistry topic comes up, it's this 1973 team that pops into my mind. This is Fran Fisher for Upon Further Review.
Upon further review, presented by the Penn State Bookstore, the 1973 team made history. That was the first year you were allowed to play 11 regular season games. Thus, they became the first team ever in college football to go 12-0. And Joe Paterno presented that team with national championship rings himself. All right, let's take a look now at the AP Top 20 and how it plays out. Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State. Clemson jumps to 4 after that win over Georgia. San Jose, Stanford, that one's yours, Todd. You go with?
I think I'll go with Stanford. I'll safely choose the Cardinal on that one.
South Carolina, Georgia, Phil.
I think Georgia wins it.
Oregon, Virginia.
I'll take Oregon and give them 30 plus.
Florida, Miami in the 90s, this was good, but?
You know, I don't like Florida's offense. I think Miami in the upset.
How about that? Very good. Let's take a look around the Big Ten now. San Diego State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan. Guys, what you calling that one?
Well, I think Notre Dame will squeak that one out, but it's interesting how Brian Kelly has done a flip-flop on that historic rivalry, has he not?
Southern Miss will be at Nebraska, Syracuse at Northwestern among some of the games of the Big Ten. All right, Phil, we start with your keys to the game.
I like to see Penn State's offense get totally involved in this football game to develop a rhythm. I want the offensive line to dominate at the line of scrimmage, and defensively, I want the guys on defense to the front four to dominate the line of scrimmage and get a good outside pass rush to make Eastern Michigan one-dimensional.
Go in focused, fully prepared, 3 hours of focused football. That does the job.
And I'm looking to see if this team can continue their drives, get them going. We talked about third down efficiency a lot from the first game. We'll see if Christian Hackenberg can make the plays that he needs to make on third down. Maybe a big game from Jesse James, one of these guys that can get that 3rd and 3, keep the sticks moving.
A lot of fun. So game 1 is in the books for Penn State. Eastern Michigan coming up Saturday at Beaver Stadium in the home opener. Should be a lot of fun. Kickoff is set for noon, and we're looking forward to it very, very much. The Nittany Lions won the opener 23-17. We mentioned Eastern Michigan won its opener 34-24 over Howard. So for Phil Grosz, for Todd Sadowski, I'm Steve Jones. Thank you very much for being with us as we get you ready each week on Blue White Tailgate Show, presented by our good friends at Rich Coast Coffee.